Nobody in that glittering, chandelier-lit restaurant expected the billionaire at table 7 to go pale. But the second Ryan Cole looked up from his $50 million contract, he froze because the pregnant waitress wobbling under a heavy tray of glasses was his ex-wife. Ryan had chosen the Grand Ember that night because it was the kind of place where the steak costs more than most people's weekly groceries. His investors were already seated, pens uncapped. The deal that would put his company on every front page was literally seconds away from being signed. Then a soft, careful voice cut right through the sound of clinking silverware. "Excuse me, coming through." Ryan's eyes locked onto the woman squeezing carefully between the tables. Sophie Lane, hair pulled back, cheeks hollow, moving slowly like every single step cost her something. Her belly sat high and round, 8 months pregnant, maybe more. She was trying so hard to hide the tremble in her hands. But the tray rattled anyway. A manager in a tight designer suit, a guy named Craig Walsh, snatched a napkin off a nearby chair. And he barked, loud enough for half the room to hear. "If you can't keep up, you're gone, pregnant or not." Sophie flinched. Not dramatic, not big, just defeated. Ryan stood up so hard his chair scraped the marble floor with a sound like a gunshot. His business partner stared at him. The whole room went quiet. "Sophie," Ryan said, like her name tasted like old wounds. She didn't smile, she didn't cry, she only whispered, "Please don't do this here." And that's when Ryan noticed something that stopped him cold. The way she shielded her stomach, like she was protecting it from him. His voice dropped to a razor, thin line. "Is that baby mine?" Sophie's eyes flicked quickly around the dining room, people pretending not to stare, phones half lifted under linen napkins. She swallowed hard, forcing her face into something flat and careful. "Ryan," she breathed, "don't." But he couldn't stop. Not after months, years of replaying the same scene in his head, like a bruise you keep pressing just to feel something. Because this wasn't how it ended, not in his memory. In his memory, Sophie stood in their kitchen with a suitcase by the door, her hands shaking as she slid divorce papers across the granite counter, like she was sliding a knife. "I'm leaving," she had said. Ryan's laugh had come out sharp, ugly. "Tell me I'm wrong," he had said. She looked past him, never into his eyes, and said the words that burned the deepest. "There's someone else. He's from overseas. He's offering me a life you never will." Ryan remembered the way his chest locked up, the way he gripped that counter until his knuckles went white. "You're lying," he had whispered. "I'm not." Her voice had cracked like glass. "Please, sign." He signed. Not because he believed her, because he wanted her to look at him, to fight, to stay. She didn't. She walked out, and the door clicked shut with a sound that rewired his whole world. After that, Ryan became the man people were afraid of, the billionaire who didn't blink, didn't forgive, didn't lose. He buried himself in deals and numbers because numbers don't betray you. And every time he saw a couple laughing together in public, he would feel that same old humiliation crawl right up his throat. Now in the back of the Grand Ember, Sophie stood just inches away, pregnant, exhausted, real. Ryan's voice dropped rougher than he meant it to. "You told me there was someone else." Sophie's jaw tightened. She looked like she was holding back a wave with her teeth. "I did what I had to do," she said. "That's not an answer." Her hand drifted to her belly again, automatic, protective. And for the first time, Ryan saw something in her eyes he hadn't expected. Fear, not fear of him yelling. Fear of the truth. She lifted her chin and forced the words out like it physically hurt to breathe them. "It's not yours," Sophie said. Ryan didn't believe her for one single second. Sophie turned to leave, but Craig Walsh was already there, blocking the hallway like a bouncer in a designer suit. This time, he didn't lower his voice. He raised it. "Well, well," Craig sneered, loud enough for nearby tables to catch every single word. "Look who decided to cause a scene. You think sympathy pays the bills. Get back to work or clock out and don't come back." Sophie's shoulders tightened. She kept her hands near her belly, trying to breathe through it, trying to stay small. "I'm doing my job," she said steady, but the tremble in her fingers gave her away. Craig flicked his gaze to her stomach like it personally offended him. "Your job? You can barely carry a tray. One mistake and someone sues. Then what? You think I'm risking my restaurant because of choices you made?" A couple at the bar glanced away. A fork clinked against a plate. The whole room pretended nothing was happening, the way people do when the truth gets ugly. Sophie took a step back. Her heel caught the edge of a service mat. The tray tilted. The glasses started sliding. Ryan moved before he even thought about it. His hand shot out and caught the tray like it weighed nothing. The glasses stopped just short of crashing. He set the tray down on a side table with calm, surgical precision, then turned to Craig with a look that made the air in the room feel suddenly thinner. "Say that again," Ryan said quietly. Craig blinked, recognizing him fully now. His smirk faltered. "Mr. Cole, this is an employee matter." Ryan stepped closer. "Not loud, not dramatic, just final. You're humiliating a pregnant woman in front of paying guests," he said. "In my presence?" Craig tried to laugh it off. "It came out wrong. She's unreliable. She's—" Ryan cut him off with one small, sharp gesture. "What's your name?" "Craig Walsh." Ryan nodded once, like he'd just filed that name away somewhere important. Then he looked past Craig, toward the dining room, toward his waiting investors, toward the contract sitting untouched on crisp white linen. "You have two choices," Ryan said. "You apologize to Sophie right now, or you explain to your owner why I'm about to make this place a very expensive memory." Sophie's eyes went wide. She grabbed Ryan's sleeve, whispering fast like a warning, "Ryan, don't, please." But Ryan didn't look at her. He didn't look away from Craig because something inside him had just snapped, and it was not the kind that bends back. Sophie's fingers slipped off Ryan's sleeve like she had touched fire. She spun toward the back exit, pushing through the swinging kitchen door, past sizzling pans, shouted orders, and the sharp smell of grease, until she burst out into the narrow alley behind the restaurant. Cold air hit her face. The city noise dropped to a distant hum. She thought she could disappear. She was wrong. Ryan followed, fast, controlled footsteps echoing off the brick walls. "Sophie, stop," he called. But she kept moving, one hand on her belly, the other bracing against the wall when her breathing snagged. He caught up near the dumpster, stepping in front of her path without touching her. Up close, he could see everything she had been hiding under the restaurant lighting. The bruised exhaustion under her eyes, the cracked, raw skin on her hands, the way she stood like her back was always on the very edge of breaking. "Don't come closer," Sophie warned, her voice shaking. Ryan's jaw clenched. "You don't get to run anymore." She let out a short, bitter laugh that didn't sound like laughter at all. "I didn't run. I survived." Ryan's eyes dropped, just for a second, to the curve of her stomach, then back to her face. Hard and pleading at the same time. "Tell me the truth," he said. "Right here. No audience. No excuses." His voice lowered to almost nothing. "Is that baby mine?" Sophie's throat moved. For just one heartbeat, she looked like she might crumble, like the weight of one honest sentence would crush her completely. Then she did what she had learned to do best. She built a wall, her chin lifted, Her eyes went flat. "No," she said, quickly, too quickly. "It's not yours." Ryan didn't move, but something inside him shifted, like a door quietly locking. "You expect me to believe you just met someone, got pregnant, and ended up here scrubbing tables?" he asked, each word clipped and careful. "You expect me to believe you never even looked for me once?" Sophie's lips pressed tight. She stared past him toward the streetlights, blinking like she was fighting back a wave of pain. "Believe whatever makes it easier for you," she whispered. Ryan stepped closer, just enough that she had to look at him. "I'm not leaving this alley until I know," he said, "and if you keep lying, Sophie, I'm going to dig up the truth myself." He let her know, hang in the cold air like a bad joke nobody laughed at. Then he did something scarier than yelling. He got calm. "Fine," he said, voice even, eyes still locked on hers. "You don't want to tell me, you won't have to." Sophie's breath caught. "Ryan, please, just let it go." He stepped back, not because he was giving up, because he was shifting gears. "You're shaking," he said, his voice changing, noticing the way her fingers clutched her belly like a life raft. "You shouldn't even be standing in a cold alley." His eyes moved to her cracked hands, the chemical burn lines along her knuckles. His jaw tightened. "Who did this to you?" "No one." The lie was automatic. Ryan nodded once, like he had been expecting exactly that answer. Then he pulled out his phone. Sophie's eyes went wide. "What are you doing?" Ryan didn't look up from the screen. "Ending this?" He tapped a name and lifted the phone to his ear. One ring, two. A voice answered, sharp and loyal. "Nathan, I need everything on Sophie Lane for the last 9 months. Where she's lived, who she's met, money transfers, threats, anything that smells even a little bit wrong." Nathan didn't hesitate, understood how fast now. Ryan said, "And I want a full file on Craig Walsh, floor manager at the Grand Ember. Employment history, complaints, lawsuits. I'm about to remove him from polite society." Sophie grabbed Ryan's wrist. "Stop, you don't understand what you're waking up." Ryan finally looked at her, really looked. "I understand you're protecting someone," he said softly. "And it's not the guy you claimed knocked you up." He ended the call, slid the phone into his pocket, and turned back toward the warm glow of the restaurant sign. Inside, the contract waited. The investors waited. Craig waited, thinking he had won. Ryan's mouth didn't smile, but his eyes did something much colder. "I'm going to buy this place," he said, "and when I do, nobody talks to you like that ever again." Sophie's voice cracked. "Ryan, don't," but he was already walking, coat swinging, footsteps steady, not chasing her anymore. Chasing the truth. Ryan didn't even make it back to his investors before his phone buzzed once. Then again, like the truth was sprinting to catch him. He stepped into a quiet side corridor near the restrooms, marble walls muffling the restaurant noise. He answered, "Nathan." On the other end, Nathan sounded different, tight, focused. "I pulled what I could fast. Ryan, she never left the city." Ryan's throat went dry. "What do you mean?" "I mean there is no overseas guy, no passport stamps, no travel records, nothing." For the last 9 months, Sophie Lane has been living in a run-down studio apartment on the edge of town. About 200 square feet, leaky ceiling, no heat half the time. Ryan stared at the wall like it might crack open. Nathan kept going, voice low. "She's been moving money, small transfers at first, then bigger, always to the same 2 names, Victor Hale and Mason Cross." Ryan's hand clenched so hard his knuckles turned white. Those names weren't strangers. They were old ghosts, men who had tried to take his company years ago and swore they would make him pay. What did they want? Ryan asked, already knowing he was not going to like the answer. "Control," Nathan said. "Or a scalp?" "I found messages on burner numbers, threats they told her if she didn't leave you, if she didn't make you sign those divorce papers, they were going to frame you, put you in prison, maybe worse." Ryan's stomach dropped like a stone, and Sophie, he forced out. Nathan exhaled slowly. "She sold her wedding ring, pawned the necklace your mother gave her, took cleaning jobs under the table, worked double shifts on swollen ankles. All of it to keep them paid off, all of it to keep you safe." Ryan closed his eyes. Behind them, the restaurant hummed on music, laughter, expensive wine, like a completely different planet. Nathan's voice got softer. "Ryan, she didn't betray you. She took the hit for you." Ryan opened his eyes. And for the first time that whole night, the rage in them was not aimed at Sophie. It was aimed at the men who made her choose the lie. Ryan didn't call Sophie. He ran through the dining room, past his stunned investors, past Craig Walsh's frozen face. He shoved the back door open and hit the alley like it was a battlefield. Sophie, no answer. Then he saw her, folded near the brick wall, one knee down, palm pressed to her belly, like she was trying to hold herself together by sheer force of will. Her skin looked waxy under the security light. Sweat beaded at her hairline even in the cold. "Sophie, hey, look at me." Ryan crouched beside her, careful, hands hovering. "Talk to me," she tried. A thin, broken sound came out. Her eyes rolled for just a second, then snapped back with panic. "My head," she whispered. "It's pounding. I can't see right." Ryan's blood turned to ice. He remembered a doctor once mentioning warning signs. Too late, too dangerous. The words came back like a siren. "Your ankles," he said, noticing how swollen they were, how her fingers looked puffed and tight. "How long has this been happening?" Sophie's mouth trembled. "Just finish your deal," she breathed, like she still believed her suffering was something she had to hide. "Please don't make it worse." Ryan pulled out his phone with shaking hands and dialed emergency services. "Pregnant woman, about 8 months. She's dizzy, severe headache, vision problems. We're behind the Grand Ember on West Crestfield." Sophie's body tensed, then sagged. "Ryan," she whispered, voice breaking. "If they find out, if Victor and Mason—" "Stop," Ryan said. Fierce and low, "You're not carrying this alone anymore." Sirens cut through the night. At the hospital, fluorescent lights washed Sophie's face pale. Nurses moved fast. A doctor leaned in, voice sharp and urgent. "Blood pressure is dangerously high. This looks like severe preeclampsia." Ryan stood there, helpless, as they wheeled her away. A nurse glanced back at him. "Sir, are you the father?" Ryan swallowed hard, eyes fixed on Sophie, disappearing through the double doors. "I should have been," he said, and it hit him like a punch, because now both of them were fighting for their lives. The double doors slammed shut, and Ryan Cole was left in the hallway with nothing but the echo of Sophie's breathing in his ears. A doctor in scrubs marched up, looking like he had been waiting for someone to blame. "Are you family?" Ryan's mouth opened. No sound. The doctor didn't soften. "She's in severe preeclampsia. Her blood pressure is dangerously high. We're prepping an emergency C-section. If we don't move fast, we could lose both of them." Ryan felt the world tilt. She didn't tell anyone. He said, like an apology and a confession all tangled together. A nurse stepped in, eyes sharp. 8 months pregnant, working on her feet, underfed, stressed. "Sir, where have you been?" That one hit harder than any punch. Ryan followed them to the edge of the operating wing, stopped by a red line on the floor like a border he did not deserve to cross. Through a glass panel, he caught a glimpse of Sophie on the gurney, small under bright lights, hair damp. Lips pale, her hands outstretched as nurses hooked up Roman 4 lines, and that was when he finally saw it clearly. The skin on her knuckles, raw, cracked, stained. Chemical burns from cheap cleaning products, the kind that don't come from one bad shift. The kind that come from months of survival. Sophie turned her head, eyes unfocused, and still, she searched the room like she was looking for him. Ryan pressed his palm flat against the glass. "I'm here," he whispered. "I'm right here. You don't have to be brave anymore." The doctor's voice cut back in. "Sir, we need consent forms, and you need to understand, this baby might come early." Ryan grabbed the pen with shaking fingers and signed, like his name could hold them all together. And in that moment, he made a silent promise that felt like a vow carved into bone. Victor Hale and Mason Cross weren't just going to pay. They were going to lose everything. The baby arrived under a clock that would not stop screaming. Minutes felt like hours. Then the doors burst open and a nurse stepped into the hallway, eyes locked on Ryan. "Sir," she said, breathing fast. "We have a boy. He's early, he's tiny, but he's fighting." Ryan's knees almost gave out. Relief hit first, hot, dizzying. Then reality followed right behind it, because Sophie wasn't out yet. "How is she doing?" he asked, voice raw. The nurse hesitated just long enough to scare him. "She's stable for now. The doctor's still with her." Ryan nodded like he understood, but his hands were shaking. He pressed his forehead to the wall, swallowing down a sound that wasn't quite a sob and wasn't quite a prayer. Then his phone vibrated. "Nathan," Ryan answered without even looking. "Tell me you've got them." "I do," Nathan said. "Locations, burner numbers, bank trails, threat messages, and we've already looped in the right people, quietly." Ryan stared through the NICU window as they wheeled his son in. No bigger than a loaf of bread, covered in wires, his tiny chest fluttering like a hummingbird. The monitor beeped in a steady, stubborn rhythm. Ryan's voice dropped to steel. "Victor Hale and Mason Cross don't get another day to breathe easy." "They won't," Nathan replied. "Warrants are moving, and Craig Walsh, there are complaints going back years. We're packaging that too." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Good, no deals, no payoffs, no misunderstandings. I want courtrooms, handcuffs, headlines." A doctor approached, pulling down his mask. "Mr. Cole, you can see your wife in recovery soon." "My ex-wife," Ryan corrected automatically, then he stopped. The word felt wrong now, too small, too late. He looked at the NICU again, at the fragile little life Sophie had protected with her own body. "Not for long," he murmured, and as Ryan followed the doctor down the corridor, one thought burned through every single step. This time, Sophie was not the one who would be sacrificed. This time, the people who had hunted them were going to learn what it meant to be hunted. By dawn, the hunt wasn't a metaphor anymore. It had a case number. Ryan Whittaker stood in the hospital parking lot with the cold chewing right through his suit, phone pressed to his ear. While the city woke up like nothing had happened inside, Sophie was in recovery. His son was in the NICU. And somewhere out there, Victor Hale and Mason Cross were probably still telling themselves they were untouchable. Nathan's voice came through clean and sharp. "The package is in. Threat texts, bank transfers, burner pings, witness statements. We handed it to the task force and the DA office." Ryan stared at his own reflection in the black glass of his car window. His eyes looked older, harder. "I want them taken in today. They're moving," Nathan said. "And Ryan, there's more. We found a paper trail tying them to attempted extortion and coercion. It's not just you. They've done this to other people before." Ryan's jaw flexed. He didn't celebrate. He didn't gloat. He just breathed slow, so slow, like a man trying not to fall apart. Across the lot, 2 unmarked vehicles rolled in. No sirens, no show, just doors opening. Officers stepping out with folders and purpose. Ryan walked back inside the hospital and stopped at Sophie's room. She was pale, hair damp, eyes barely open. But she turned her head when she felt him. Ryan, she whispered, scared, like the truth might still find a way to punish her. He moved to her bedside and took her burned hand gently, like it was something sacred. "They're not coming for you anymore," he said. "Victor and Mason, it's over." Tears slipped from the corners of her eyes, quiet and exhausted. "I didn't want you to get hurt," she said. "I know," Ryan said, voice cracking, "and that's why I'm done letting you pay the price alone." In the hallway, his phone buzzed one more time. One text from Nathan, there in custody. Ryan closed his eyes just for a second, then he leaned down and whispered to Sophie, "We're going to bring our boy home." 3 days later, the NICU became Ryan Cole's new boardroom, not the kind with leather chairs and skyline views. This one smelled like hand sanitizer and warmed plastic. Monitors beeped, nurses moved like clockwork. And behind the glass, his newborn son lay in an incubator, barely 4 pounds. His tiny chest rising and falling like it was practicing for life. Sophie stood beside Ryan, still weak, one arm wrapped around herself under a thin hospital blanket. Her eyes never left the baby. "I named him Owen," she whispered. "I didn't think you'd ever want to know him." Ryan swallowed, throat tight. "I want to know every second I missed." A nurse walked by, pausing to adjust a tiny tube with the gentlest hands Ryan had ever seen. He watched her move to the next incubator. Another family, another fight, and something inside him shifted. Money suddenly felt useless if it couldn't change this. He turned to Nathan that afternoon, voice low but firm. "I want this NICU upgraded today, not a press release, not a gala, real equipment, more staff, whatever they say they need, make it happen." Nathan blinked. "Ryan, that's a big lift." Ryan's stare didn't move. "So is keeping a baby alive at 4 pounds. Do it." By the end of that week, new monitors arrived. The hospital received additional respiratory support equipment. A fund was set up so families wouldn't have to choose between gas money and visiting hours. Sophie found Ryan one night sitting on a hallway bench, like a man who had finally run out of strength. "You didn't have to do all this," she said softly. Ryan looked up, eyes shining. "Yes," he said, "I did. Because you carried the fear, you carried the pain, you carried him." He reached for her burned hand again, careful. "Now I carry us." And for the first time in a very long time, Sophie didn't flinch. She leaned in and she let him. A month later, for the very first time, baby Owen Cole finally breathed without a machine. Ryan didn't throw a party. He didn't call any reporters. He just stood in the NICU doorway, eyes wet, whispering, "That's my boy," like it was the first honest sentence he had spoken in years. Sophie was getting stronger. 2 slow walks down the hospital corridor, hair pulled back, still healing. One afternoon, Ryan brought her outside and pointed across the street. The old Grand Ember sign was gone. In its place, Sophie's table, simple letters, warm lighting, the kind of place that didn't feel like a showroom for rich people anymore. Sophie stared, confused. "You bought it?" she said. Ryan nodded. "And I changed it. No more humiliation, no more fear. Everyone gets treated like a human being, especially the ones carrying the heaviest loads." She blinked fast, trying not to cry. "Why name it after me? Because you were the real backbone," Ryan said. "You saved me, even when I didn't deserve it." Don't judge someone's story by the scene you walk into. Sometimes the person who looks fine is falling apart inside. Sometimes the one who seems cold and distant is drowning in regret. Compassion isn't weakness. It's the strongest choice you can make, especially later in life, when you've learned just how fast everything can change. Have you ever misunderstood someone you loved until the truth hit you hard? Drop your story in the comments.